In this video, we are going to have a look at the Hollyland Mars 300 Pro, which is the latest wireless video transmitter from Hollyland. And if you have been looking at buying a video transmitter, especially the one from Hollyland, but got a bit confused between the different model that is available, you have the Mars X, the 300 Pro, and also the 400 series. I'm going to tell you what is the major difference between all these models and which one is the one that is most suitable for you. Kia ora, good morning everyone, Richard Wong here. Welcome back to the channel. So in this video, we are going to have a look at the latest video transmitter from Hollyland. This is the 300 Pro. So this 300 Pro sits between the 400 series and Mars X, and in a lot of ways it is a lot closer to the 400 series than the Mars X. But if you are looking at buying a Mars X, I think it's still good to check out this 300 Pro because there are some reasons why you may want to get this 300 Pro instead of Mars X. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit later on in this video. But before that, let's take a closer look at this Mars 300 Pros first. And let's start by talking about the design and build quality. Look at the front of the transmitter. It is a bit different to the 400 series because it doesn't have any display at all at the front here. That's because Hollyland moved the display to the side. So we have a little OLED display here. The size of this display is a bit smaller than the one on the 400 series, but it is still a very nice, very bright OLED display. So you shouldn't have any problem reading what is displayed on the screen even during the middle of the day. And on the display here, you can see the channel, you can see the connection information, and by using this switch here that is just below the display, you can go through the different settings and also change some of the settings quite easily. With the 300 Pro, there are two ways you can power the unit, like using the Sony battery as you can expect it, but you can also power it by using the USB-C connector. So you can easily just use your USB power supply to power the unit, which I find is very convenient and also a big advantage if you compare it to the Hollyland 400 series transmitter and receivers, because with the 400 series transmitter receivers, you either have to use the Sony type battery or you have to use a special DC power supply, which there is only one that comes with the box. So if you're like me that most of the time you use your transmitter receiver in a fixed indoor location that you want to just use a DC power supply, just use the USB-C to power it. It's just a lot easier and you don't have to buy anything because most people will have plenty of USB power source inside their house. And for people who want to attach both the wireless transmitter and also an external monitor to your camera, you can use this HDMI loop out connector to output from the 300 Pro to your external monitor. That means you don't really have to rely and buy an external monitor that has both the HDMI and out port. So pretty much any external monitor, you can just connect it directly to the out port on this 300 Pro transmitter. Okay, now let's have a look at the receiver. Put the receiver and the transmitter side by side, you notice they are virtually identical. It's because they have pretty much the same design and the dimensions are exactly the same. You have to look a little bit closer, then you will notice some difference. For example, on the side here, one say the TX transmitter and the other say RX receiver, and at the front also there's some word here, even smaller, that say transmitter and receiver. And I think the main difference is on the other side, one has a HDMI input and then the loop out, which is on the transmitter, while the receiver, they are both HDMI out, so you have two different HDMI output port. So Hollyland seems to really like this symmetrical design, and to me, I actually don't really know whether I like it or not, because when you pick it up, you really have to look very closely before you can tell which one is which one. And another time I made a mistake. I thought I grabbed the transmitter, but end up I grabbed the receiver, and because they look virtually the same and they have same number and the same shape of connection ports here, so I set up everything and then turn on and was wondering why there's nothing that coming out on my external monitor. And because I made a mistake, I swapped the transmitter and receiver, and I end up I have to break it apart and put it back together. So yeah, I think it would be good if Hollyland makes some more noticeable difference between the transmitter and receiver, even if they want to keep the shape exactly the same. Maybe a different color or something that is a bit more distinctive, so you can see, like just from the front, you can easily see one is the transmitter and one is the receiver. That's just a small complaint, but I think that would make it a bit more user-friendly than the current completely same design. There are actually two different versions of the Hollyland 300 Pro. The one I'm holding here is the standard version transmitter, and the difference between it and the enhanced version is the enhanced version uses the external antenna. Sorry, I should say two external antenna, while the normal standard version uses the internal antenna, and that's pretty much the only difference between the two. If you want to have slightly better transmission, then you can go for the enhanced version. Especially the enhanced version, you can also switch to the different type of antenna, depends on your usage, while the standard version would just use the internal antenna. Personally, I prefer the standard version because it doesn't have the external antenna that's sticking out, just looks more simple and also easier to carry around. And also the range, even with the internal antenna, is already very impressive, but I will talk about the range a little bit more later on. Feature-wise, this is a wireless video transmitter, so the main feature is to transfer your video signal wirelessly to the remote device. With the 300 Pro, you can pair one receiver to one transmitter. So unlike the 400 series, which you can pair more than one receiver to the transmitter, with the 300 Pro you can only have 1-to-1. So with the one receiver here, remember we have two HDMI output ports, so you could still output it to two separate external monitor with only one receiver. And in additional to that, you can also download the Hollyland HolyView app on a smart device, and you can have it as your additional device to receive the video wirelessly. So you could connect it to one receiver and one smart device at the same time. That means you can output it to 3 different devices wirelessly when using the 300 Pro. Or you can choose to not use the 300 Pro receiver at all, and if you do that, then you can output it to 3 different smartphones running the HolyView app. So you also have 3 different remote receiver that is receiving the signal from the transmitter. And I have just mentioned the HolyView app a few times. If you don't know what it is the app that you can use to connect to the Hollyland Mars series transmitters. So you can use it to connect to the Mars X or the 300 or the 400 series transmitters. With the app running and connected to the Wi-Fi of your transmitter, you can receive the video footage remotely and view it on your HolyView app. And not only that, there are many additional features. You can enable different type of on-screen display, for example peaking, zebra, and many other on-screen display that you can enable. And you can also apply different LUTs as well, so that you can preview what the video should look like after you've done the color grading. You can also do video capture and save the footage as video file, or you can do a screen capture as well when you're running the HolyView app. While I think some of the user interface could be slightly more polished, I feel overall the HolyView app is a very nice app. It runs pretty smooth and also pretty stable, and it is definitely a very convenient tool when you are shooting outdoor, when you don't want to carry or you don't have the external monitor but still want to share the footage to other people. Hollyland claims the 300 Pro transmitter has a 0.08 second latency, which is very low, and also the distance, the working range is 300 feet when you have direct line of sight. So I went outdoor and did a test to see what is the range that I can get with this 300 Pro when I'm using it outdoor, pretty much direct line of sight with nothing in between. So when I test it, my result is I can go up to 200 meters away from my transmitter, which is 660 feet or so, and I can still receive the video signal perfectly from the transmitter. This is easily more than double the range that is specified by Hollyland. Pretty impressive. One thing you have to remember is when I did the test, I did it outdoor, and that was with a direct line of sight and pretty much no interference. And the 300 Pro is running on 5 GHz, which is quite a high frequency. And the high frequency, the problem is if you have something that is blocking between your transmitter and receiver, the high frequency signal doesn't go through it quite as well compared to some of the lower frequency transmission. So when you are using the indoor, be expected the range could be quite a bit lower than the 300 feet range. This is definitely one thing you have to watch out for if you are planning to use it indoor, especially when there will be walls or something that is blocking between your transmitter and receiver. One thing I really like about the 300 Pro when compared to the 400 series transmitter and receiver is the 300 Pro, the receiver doesn't have any built-in fan at all, and also on the transmitter it does have a built-in fan, but you can adjust the fan setting. That means when you are filming in the indoor and very quiet environment like here, there's pretty much no noise at all. When previously I was using the 400S as a way for me to check the footage, I placed the receiver just on my desk, very close to my microphone, and my microphone would pick up a little bit of the fan noise from the receiver. The fan is actually not that loud on the 400S, but because I was shooting in the very quiet room, so even that little bit of fan noise is enough for the microphone to pick it up, and you can hear it in the video if you go back and watch some of my previous video. But with the 300 Pro, there is no fan at all on the receiver, and on the transmitter I can also choose to switch it off if I want to. I didn't need to do that because I put the camera a little bit away from me and the mic is not on the camera, but rather it's next to me. But if you are filming with the microphone that is directly attached to the camera, the ability now with the 300 Pro to turn off the fan on the transmitter would definitely help you a lot to get a more clean and noise-free audio signal when you are filming. Oh, there's one thing I nearly forgot. It's one thing that I want to complain when I was doing my 400S review, but I forgot it in the end. Now, it's a good chance for me to bring it up. With the 300 Pro, when you bought it in the box, there are a few different accessories. For example, a mounting plate here, allow you to attach it here and allow you to mount the transmitter or the receiver in a different way, and also have the hot shoe mount and also different cables. But one thing I really think it should include, but it doesn't, is a carry case for the transmitter or the receiver. There's nothing that comes with it. I know Hollyland, they sell some carry case separately, but I thought it would be great if they actually include some carry case, because now when I carry around and I haven't bought the separate carry case, that means I have to just chuck it there, and it might scratch it when I just put it in my camera bag. And this is the same thing with the 400 series transmitter. So I think it would be really great, Hollyland, if you include some kind of carry case, even a very cheap one, when people buy your 300 or 400 series transmitters. If you have been looking at buying a wireless video transmitter, especially the one from Hollyland, but just not too sure which one is most suitable for you, they have the Mars X, they have this new 300 Pro, and then also the 400 series. They are all very popular for various reasons. So which one is the most suitable for you? Let's start from this little guy here. If you want the most basic, most simple setup, you are not planning to buy an external monitor, or you don't need to output to external monitor, just want something that is easy to set up and easy to use, then the Mars X is the most suitable for you because it has a built-in battery. So you just need to charge the built-in battery first using the USB port, and then just bring a HDMI cable, connect it to your camera, and that's pretty much it. Just turn it on and then download the app on your smart device, and you can wirelessly remotely check the footage on your smart device. So this is definitely the most easiest way to have the video signal transfer wirelessly to a remote device, and it is also the cheapest setup out of the three. But having said that, if you are interested in buying the Mars X, I think you should still check out the 300 Pro, because with the 300 Pro you can choose to buy the single transmitter, and the price of it is almost the same as the Mars X. You can also transfer the video footage wirelessly to your smart device that is running Hollyland app, but you have the flexibility to also transfer the signal to a remote receiver so that you can still output it to a external monitor if you want later on. If you change your mind later on, you can also do that, which is something that you cannot do if you bought the Mars X. However, there is one little problem is, even though Hollyland, they do sell the transmitter just by itself and the price is pretty much the same as the Mars X, you cannot buy the receiver separately. So if you bought the transmitter by itself, even though technically you can add a receiver so that allow you to output the signal to a remote external monitor through HDMI, in reality you cannot do that because you cannot buy the receiver separately if you only buy a single transmitter version. I've asked Hollyland if they have any plan to sell the receiver by itself, but they told me they don't have such plan right now. So if you feel like Hollyland should also sell the receiver by itself, just drop a comment below and let Hollyland know, and maybe they will change their mind and they will sell the receiver separately, because I think if they do that, then the 300 Pro would be a very good alternative to the Mars X. But compared to the Mars X, of course, the downside is it doesn't come with any built-in battery, so you have to either use a Sony type battery or you can use the USB-C port to power it separately, which is not too bad because these days most of us would have a power bank or some device that can output USB-C power to power this device. So yeah, I really hope that Hollyland would change their mind and sell the receiver separately. But in the meantime, yeah, this is one little thing that you have to be careful if you are planning to buy just the single transmitter package. And now if we compare the 300 Pro and the 400 series, what is the difference between them and which one should you choose? The 300 Pro has a few advantages. It has slightly lower latency, even though that's really not a lot. One is 0.08 and one is 0.1, so the difference is very minor. But it does have the USB-C power option, which I personally find is a very convenient, very useful feature. And also, I mentioned before, this one doesn't have the built-in fan on the receiver, and also the transmitter, you can change the fan setting. So if you need to film in a very quiet place, the 300 Pro is the better choice than the 400 series transmitters. But on the other hand, the Hollyland 400 or 400S definitely has a few other advantages. The first one, the working distance, the range is a bit higher, which is 400 feet compared to 300 feet with the 300 Pro. It has a slightly bigger screen, which I prefer more than the one on the 300 Pro. And with the 400S, you also has the SDI connector, and also with each of the 400 transmitter, you can pair it with up to 2 receiver and also multiple smart devices, while the 300 Pro you can only pair it with 1 receiver and 1 smart device at the same time. So if you want the SDI connector, or you want to pair it with multiple receivers, or having that extra range is important to you, then the 400 or 400S would probably be the best choice for you. On the other hand, if you don't need those extra range or extra connection, then I think the 300 Pro is probably the best transmitter receiver for most users right now.